Welcome back. I'm Tom Fury, and I am here in this illustrious new studio, basically called my mum's conservatory, with Jupiter, who's going to be on Getter for the first time. I think the first time on Getter, and out on Twitter, and we're out on YouTube as well. So, welcome to Jupiter.
I apologise for the noise in the background. My next door neighbours have got works going on, so you're going to hear a lot of drilling.
We'll live with it. We'll live with it. It might be more interesting than my conversation. Who knows? So thanks for coming on. I know we had a couple of full starts, so thanks for coming on. First of all, obviously, as I said, we're going out on Getter as well. Don't worry about these numbers because they're all over the place on here. We're going out on Getter as well, and there's an American audience and just an audience that may not have come across you before. So I remember when I had you on an interview, I said to you, with some trepidation, because you've got a massive user base per subs. So I said to you, are you a kind of like gossip column but digital? And you said yeah. But obviously lots happened since then. So in your own words, what is it that you do? What would you say that your show is?
Basically, I just speak for ordinary members of the public who to see. I watch what goes on the right and the left and with politics and stuff like that, and I just commentate on it. But I commentate on it from a very layperson point of view. I don't have any aims to go into politics. If anything, I just want community cohesion one way or the other. And I think that the lines of communication have to stay open and that free speech is imperative. Now, when I say that, I also believe that free speech comes with responsibilities. And I think that many people have not understood that, and that many people, mainly on the left, although the right do engage in it now, try to push the barriers of using insults and derogatory things to try to say, well, that's free speech, and this is what you're asking for, when that's really not what we're asking for. What we're saying is, look, let's at least maintain the rights that we've got. Don't help erode them away.
Yeah, which happens with everything else. I agree. Yeah.
So basically, I just do panel shows. I go around talking to the left. I talk to the right. I talk to people that are very low IQ. I step up to the highbrow channels when I can. I just listen, take on board what they say, because because I go on all these panels, or from one camp I've been branded the left, from another camp I've been branded
right.
And actually, all it is
Zionist in the morning and a Nazi by evening. So
actually, all it is that I'm interested in other people's opinions, what they believe in, what their groups. Because I would rather say that actually.
You're breaking the narrative, aren't you? That's the problem. People can be set and only talking to one set of people or another set of people, and that's not how you fix problems, is it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it's very tribalistic. And you'll always get what I call trolls that try to manipulate, Do
you think that's an internet thing?
Yes, I do. I think it's one of the dangers of social media. And I also think that you get a lot of trial by kangaroo courts. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Tommy's last little thing that he put out to do with Barrow actually sort of like touched on it a little bit. The way that we are having group hysteria in this country, and those group hysterias are not helping. They don't represent the mainstream. And what they do is they actually push people into positions, and when really actually and those positions lead to people shutting down communication and not resolving issues.
I agree.
And actually, we need to keep those lines of communications open, and be able to freely talk to each other and express our views with respect, not in the insulting way that some of these trolls like to engage in it, but with respect, and try to work out ways that we can all move forward, because our country is a changing country. The people of the country were never asked. And a lot of the things that the government do, and it, to me, in my opinion, it doesn't matter whether it's the left or the right. Both of them have made atrocious decisions that's led us to where we are today. And
in terms of politics, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do need change, but we can only do that if we get the masses behind us, and we all stand together. And what I see a lot on the channels is divide. There's always this sort of like trying to point
snipiness, cattiness.
Yeah, it's like a warfare that's going on, and it's quite comical at times.
There is.
Other
it
times,
it is a warfare. I think it's a warfare of egos.
Yes, yes,
I think it's warfare. The moment you bring this camera, this lens, an audience into it, popularity contest is what it becomes. For some. Would you agree?
I would say that most people that are willing to put their face out and put their face against their opinions are immediately stepping up for criticism anyway. So you're always going to get your negative critics. But yeah, I would definitely say that it is a popularity contest for some people, for most people. But actually, if people like what you're talking about, they will talk to you. It's as simple as that. And it doesn't matter how many people are trying to malign you, and they will do. They will do. They will.
Oh,
they
yeah.
will try to twist and propagate any single thing that you say or do to take it out of context, clip it. The things
happens to me now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would never have believed it at one point.
Yeah. Well, it's got atrocious. I blame the mainstream media myself, because I think it's something
They started it.
Yeah, they did start it.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny you mentioned about the interaction with people, because I was trying to work out, like, I know you said you do panels and stuff like that. I was trying to work out what it is about your show where per sub you've got a very active show. I remember when before I had like 3,000 subscribers, people used to like me, and then when I got the modicum of success, then they all want to hate you. Yeah, but when I had a sort of small, what I would call a smaller, but I actually loved the size of it when it was about 3,000. We used to have a lot more people that would come on the live than say we do now. And it was, I think it was because you could just jump in. And I was thinking with you, do you think with you that's what it is that, like, you've been doing this for a long time now. So when as you know, I can't watch big long streams, but when I check in on other streams, what I notice is if there's a panel, they're either talking about some in-depth thing that they've already started talking about on another show or something, or they're having interpersonal conversations that, unless you're around that group of people, you wouldn't really know what they're talking about. Whereas a few times when I've popped on with you, obviously that does happen, but a lot of times when I popped on with you, you're talking about these larger issues. Do you think that's why you keep pulling the numbers in?
I think it's a bit of both, because what I learned early on was that I had a previous channel that was called Jupiter, and it was shut down. Actually, it was shut down by the right. It was the jealousy on the right that shut it down. I'm not going to get into the politics of it all, but and they shut me down, and I lost my very first channel. And I realized, actually, what I want to do is I want to be able to speak wherever I go.
Yeah.
And if I ever was to lose all my channels, I wanted to be able to just jump onto other platforms and people be willing to speak to me. So I decided that what I would do is I would go on as many small channels as I could. And especially when people started up their channels, obviously they would be grateful to have me go over, because my audience would follow me over to watch what I'm saying. It helped build up their channel, but it also gave me another door.
And I absolutely get that.
With a lot of people. So I kind of don't just talk about the politics of what's going on in the real world. I talk about the politics of what's going on the channels as well.
Yeah. It's just funny what you said when we first started, because as you may or may not know, I'm working with the boys to do Voice of Britain, And one of the reasons I asked you on because I feel like shows like yours are the voice of Britain. I feel like you are the voices of Britain and much more in touch with things than, say, even people like myself have become. And I think that it's vitally important, like you said, to keep communications open in all directions. And yeah, I so like I said, I consider you like a voice of Britain. Obviously, you need other people to contrast your opinions because obviously, one opinion,
Yes.
but I feel
Yes.
like we need about 3 shows like yours,
Well,
and
that's
then
what I often get criticised for, Tom, because I will have people that come on that sometimes we call degenerates. They've got degenerate mindsets, or they're far left and they're very irritating because they won't
right,
accept anything you're saying. But for
no,
me,
no,
I don't want to sit in an echo chamber. I don't mind having those
yes,
shows
yeah, I get
where
that.
we just discuss and agree and get the point across. But you also have to keep the avenue open to be able to talk to people that don't agree with you and to be able to sort of like listen to their point of view as much as you want to get your point of view
Yeah,
across.
yeah. I mean, all my favorite people, and you're probably the same. All my favorite people in this movement, we've all got differences of opinion about at least one subject. Important
Yes,
subject,
yes.
and but I've always considered that to be the strength of people like us, is that we can do that again rather than following the narrative. And that's
Yes.
what I see you doing as well. You don't you even if you've got an opinion that sits on a certain side, you won't necessarily just follow that narrative through just because that's what everyone else is doing.
No, I won't. I won't.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, sorry.
I have lost viewers and then they've returned and then they've left again and then they've returned when they feel like,
That
because
happens.
what I find is a lot of the viewers want you to stand 100% with their views, and of course you can't do that. You can't
No,
please all these
no.
people all of the time, and everybody knows that I do. I support Tommy Robinson in his fight against grooming gangs. When he spoke about terrorism, I agreed with a lot of the things that he said on terrorism. And for that I was highly criticised. As you know, anybody who dares say that they
Oh yeah,
agree
yeah.
with Tommy Robinson on some things, the minute that you say that, you're under attack, especially if your face is out there, you know.
Sorry.
But that doesn't mean that I agree with Tommy Robinson 100% all the time. It just means that for the
Absolutely,
majority of the time, when he's talking
absolutely.
sense, I agree with him, you know.
No, I'm the same. When I said I don't agree with everybody, that means Tommy. That means literally everybody. That we've all got differences. I think that's healthy. I think that's healthy because that's when, rather than stroking each other's ego, you're certain ideas you're hashing out. Certain things you're hashing out. Um, and it's a bit like doing a podcast. If you've got one person doing a podcast, you can appeal to maybe a slight part of the audience. But you've got 2 people, you're going to appeal to more than double the type of audience because of the array of opinions. And I do think it does us good to interact and not agree, to not agree. And when we are agreeing, to still pick up points that maybe we don't agree with the other person. I think it's all really healthy. But like you say, people like you said about the audience, people come and go when they don't agree with you. What I find is over time, like the people that aren't trolls and stuff like that, they'll tend to respect you for, even if they don't agree with you, they'll tend to respect you in the end for having your opinion, sticking with it, as long as you're not being a blind fool. Do you know what I mean? I have found that with people sort of turn their back on me and then they've gone, do you know what? You've stuck with your opinion. Sometimes been right about things, otherwise not. So I think in the short term, you could change your opinion to please other people, but in the long term, I think that would actually go against a person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think that mindsets change anyway. I
Yeah,
mean,
and facts.
yeah, so what you will often get criticism. Oh, you said this before, and you try to explain over and over and over and over. I've got to the stage now where I explain it. If you don't want to listen, I just say, well, I've explained this before. Refer them to what video, and just ignore them. The fact of the matter is, look, your mindsets can change as you gain more knowledge. But also, you don't have to agree with everybody 100% of the time. I find that what's happening now is that it's not just becoming tribal, but it's almost like a dumbing down. They're making sure that people don't use their logical skills or their reasoning skills or have their own opinion. And as much as I'm for the collective in making sure that there's social cohesion and the fact that people get on and we can find a way forward where the majority are happy and not the minority. And I'm not talking about ethnics. I'm talking about the minority of a country. You know, as much as I'm for that, I'm also for individual freedom and choice, you know, and it's a balance.
It is fine. Yeah, fine balance.
It's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. And and most reasonable people can understand that. Like I was on a live stream the other day and someone said, yeah, but we're not really free in Britain, are we? And I said, well, we're as free as we can be and we need to hold on to it and not let them take our freedom.
Freer than we've ever been.
Yeah. And then they said, well, if I want to walk outside naked, I'm not allowed to do that. And I said, well, that's because, you know, when it comes to that individual freedom, we have to go with the majority for social cohesion. So there is a trade-off, you know.
That's how you create a culture and become a culture is about being predictable to each other so that we can not be threatened, not resort to violence. So you have to have cultural norms so you can interact and understand each other, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And each country has its own limits to what they agree with or what they can adhere to. I mean, Britain, for example, we find murder for criminal offences abhorrent, like hanging and stuff. We got rid of that years ago. Other countries still do it, you know. America's got 3 strikes and you're out. We find that pretty harsh, especially when it comes down to minor crimes that lead you to the 3 strikes and you're out. So every country's got its own culture, and we can always debate the rights and wrongs and the positives and negatives. But if you're not prepared to discuss with people that are not going to agree with you, you're never going to get that discussion or conversation.
Yeah. I mean, the worrying thing I saw recently, I mean, up until this point, we've been able to say to your last point that this has been this has been the best time to be alive for most people, even people in poverty, compared to other times in history. The only negative bit of data I've seen recently is that the life expectancy in America and possibly Britain, but I know it's definitely America, has dropped by a few years for men and women. And I think that's the first time. Well, I don't know. I don't even know how long for, but for a very long time. Obviously, each decade it's gone up, you know.
Yeah.
So, do you? I mean, I know that you've got a bit of an interest in history, like I have. Do you think that we've shown the signs of the end of an empire? And let me give you an example. Usually, at the end of empires, they lose their religion. They will embrace something else like a religion. They'll become depraved, and lots of these social norms will be broken, and it tends to be signs that the empire's falling, no matter how quick or slow that is. Do you see that, or do you think I'm being a bit alarmist?
No, I think you're quite correct, but I think that it's all been manipulated. I don't think it's been a natural fall. I think that it's been done on deliberate. There are many reasons out there that people put forward. One of them is that Britain just got tired of being the mother, you know. It just got tired of having to always go in and resolve issues in other countries or provide finances and everything else. And when I listen to highbrow people talk about that as a layperson, I think, well, yeah, kind of. I can go with that one because I know that, for example, that most British people have got tired of being dragged into other people's wars. We've woken up to, as much as we appreciate, both of my grandparents fought in the Second World War. You know, I've got a brother-in-law that was in the RAF and stuff like that. As much as we appreciate those people that have given their time for our country, I think we've started to take a step back and say, look, we get no thanks out of it. And we always get the blame, no matter, even if we go in there with the best of intentions and do as much good as we can. And it's costly and it affects our country in the long run. And we would much rather have a defensive army that defended our airways, our seas.
We need a navy. Brexit's requirement is a really strong navy, and we've always had a strong navy. We don't at the moment, which is crazy because it's part and parcel of doing worldwide trade deals. You know.
Well, what happened while we were in the EU? There was a lot of deals made that the French, that they would take over the sort of the what did they call it? The military arm of Europe. Basically, that was going to be the military base, and we got rid of a lot of weaponry that we had here, and we scaled down. I think even EU uniforms were dished out at one point, and then of course we decided Brexit, and it didn't quite go the way that they wanted it to.
Yeah, they've slowed it down, haven't they?
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I get the feeling, and I could be wrong. It's only my opinion, but I get the feeling that whatever avenue they can, they're still trying to just re-submerge us into this European agenda that they had. Yeah.
Oh, I think that there's a lot of people. It doesn't look like we are live on Getter at the moment. Actually, I don't know what's going on there. I think the people that think on one side, I think the people that think that we got out the European Union are wrong, and I think the people that think that their dreams of staying in the European are wrong. I think that they're still working weekly to make sure that we're staying in, and there's not much change that I'm aware of legally at the moment, except for the fact that we don't have a voice. So I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't really know, but I feel like, yeah, that if there is any real desire from any MPs or anything to leave Europe, I think that it's still a process that could take 30 years till we have another referendum and we'll be back where we started.
Yeah, what we need is a decisive person in charge of this country who's going to start scaling back on all the policies and procedures that the EU brought in, keeping the ones that work for us and getting rid of the ones that don't. That's what
the thing is with the EU. For people like us, you know, if you can't go to your own government and blame your own government or whatever, if you're being told that it defaults to a place in Brussels that you don't elect and it's right up the top of it, you feel disjointed from your own culture, from your own country, don't you? The ladder's too big for you.
I'll tell you what I feel. I feel fascism. So if we can't vote the people in, and these people in their powerful positions in Europe are just giving out the jobs to who they think is suitable, we've lost our voice, we've lost our choice, and basically we're being dictated to. And that's something that the British never ever wanted. We've never agreed with dictatorship and democracy. As much as we might need to shake up the democracy in this country and shake up the system a little bit, democracy is still the best way to go.
Yeah, this is what people don't get, is they talk about a lot of this stuff and they go, oh, it's not perfect. And it's like, no, it's not perfect. Nobody made the claim that the system that we have is perfect. What the claim that's been made is it's better than communism, which killed 100 million people. It's better than any system of government that we've found so far. But obviously, I feel like the left try and twist and turn that. It's like when they talk about colonization, and there's a recency bias there, because if you go back, there's a multitude of people around this world that, if you was to look at their ancestry, would be guilty of enslaving people, of oppressing people, because every empire for about 6,000 years felt, for instance, that they needed slaves in order to free up their time and their economy to be able to build armies and everything else. Up until the end of the British Empire, it was a tried and tested method for 6,000 years that you build empires on the backs of slaves, and that injects into your economy, frees up time for you to do bigger things. I'm not saying it's right, but it's 6,000 years. But there's a recency bias where England gets the blame.
Yeah, it's quite amazing, and I think it's because our politicians have allowed us to get the blame. If you go back into international,
they teach us to hate ourselves in schools.
Yeah, if you go back into international history and world history, you would know that, like you said, that every country had slavery. In fact, it was quite the norm thing that basically, if you had people that were not conducive to your society, the punishment was to ostracize them, to expel them. This progressed into expelling and putting them somewhere else. In some countries, like Africa and that, they would put them into a completely another tribe, and they would be made to work for them and do a penance. And it was a similar thing around Europe. You will find that slavery first began with Irish convicts, for example. With our slavery, a lot of people don't know that it was Irish convicts as well as African convicts that served the Caribbeans. But also on top of that, we actually had pre-1066, we had the Vikings who enslaved us. In fact, the ports of Bristol and the ports of Dublin were built on slavery, for slavery, by the Vikings to take English people. It was English people that they actually rounded up from the coasts and stuff, and people that had committed crimes, and they sold them. And those slaves, those white slaves, went as far as Africa.
And there's times when the Irish were taking English. The Barbary pirates that people always equate to coming from a certain part of the world, which they originally did, ended up expanding so that they were British enslaving British and calling themselves Barbary pirates. There were French. There was all kinds of nationalities involved with them in the end. But they were coming and nicking people straight off the British shores.
A whole village in Cornwall was actually taken at one point, and that's recorded history.
So, and for reasons that we don't exactly know, William the Conqueror, of all people, in 1078 made slavery in this country illegal.
Maybe that was because of what had gone on.
Could have been. That's what I was wondering when you said
with the Vikings and stuff, because it was all pre-1066 that the worst of it happened here.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I want to make very clear is that the white slaves that were taken to Africa were also castrated, just like
the treatment was the same.
And so if there is this, which I don't believe, by the way, if there is this innate change to your DNA and you hold the memory of these things that happen to you throughout life, then what about the descendants of those slaves that have never had any sort of like reparations for what they've suffered? Where does this start and where does it end? And I find it very interesting because
when you start playing that game. See, a lot of people in America are told that slavery by the far left, that slavery started with the Americas. They don't know any different.
Yeah, but it's not true. But 2 days ago, for instance, in San Francisco, there is rumours that they are thinking of giving £5 million to anyone who can prove that they are a descendant of a slave. And I found it quite amusing that all these people were like, oh yeah, black people are going to get money. And I was like, hold on a minute. Do you not know that there are actually descendants of slaves that are actually white now? And
yes, that's well said. Well said. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
And so when the narrative starts to break down and it doesn't actually fit, they try to close you down and say that you're against certain people progressing and this, that, and the other. And of course, it's not that. My husband's African. He understands from the African point of view because he was born, he was raised there, he done degrees, he came here, done degrees. But he went through the system over there, and you know, they get taught stuff about Madame Tinubu and the fact that actually she said she would rather kill her slaves that she had captive than sell them at a lower price. But what you hear coming out of America is, oh, this woman was great, you know, she did this for slaves and she did that for slaves. Actually, there's a lot more nuance to all of it. And when you say nuance, you get people on the right, especially the extreme right, who go, oh, look, she's talking like a lefty. Well, no.
That's not talking like a lefty.
You know, I'm talking like a normal person.
Yeah.
You can't
nuance is what's missing on the internet, or at least people's understanding of it.
Yeah.
So no, I agree with you totally. Nuance is what's missing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's almost an irony that would get said to you, or that you'd be treated like that over that. It's an irony because it is what gets missed. And not by everybody. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of sharp people on the internet, and I find that I could sit here and say to you, oh, the trolls and this, you know, all the rest of it. But I've had chance to reflect of late, and I now look at it and I think 99% good people versus 1% trolls, and that would be probably a high push. Ain't bad, is it? You know?
No, it's not bad. And at the end of the day, look, even if you have got haters, someone once said there's no bad press, you know, even bad press is good press. If you are annoying people enough that they actually hate you and they want to come and argue against you, it's a good thing because you're opening up communication.
So I was talking about the other day when I was talking about pro wrestling, and when I was trying to say, if somebody can polarize people and be a good guy to some people and a bad guy to other people, that will actually attract the biggest audience. And it does, and also will create some of the most compelling conversations. I mean, the one thing I do feel, and don't you take any personal offense to this, because obviously I've not seen every conversation in the movement, but one thing I do feel is that the panels I have seen, which aren't many, but the panels I have seen, I feel like they always miss the mark. I feel like, again, they're either a bit tribal, like you said, or they're just not accessible to viewers from the outside. And I just feel like they're either slanging matches, or they're just not accessible. They're not going to pass the test of time. They're throwaway. Do you know what I mean? They're throwaway.
Yeah. So what happens is that if you really want to get down to the people that are working class and at the bottom, unfortunately, you are going to have to put up with some dregs of society that just turn up who think it's amusing because they're drunk to turn up on a panel. And spout rubbish. You will get the odd porn bomber. You will get all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, as long as you're getting your voice out there, it doesn't matter if you're at the bottom or you're a big superstar. For me, I don't want to be a well-known, recognised voice. I can't think of anything worse than being stopped in the street. I mean, I've been doing this for 4 years, and 3 times I've been recognised. And each time I've been like, oh, shit, what's going to happen here?
I mean, I've never had it like Tom Robinson has it, thank God. I don't know how I'd cope, but I've had it to the point where, give me an example. There was one day I was at a demo, and this lady said to me, "Can I take a picture with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And she was with her husband, so she come over and put her arm around me. So I put my arm around her, and I'm beckoning the husband into the photograph. He's not coming. He's not coming. She, oh no, she only wants to do it with you. I'm thinking, I don't even know why she wants to have a picture with me, but now I feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't know how the people that are really famous or celebrities, or like you say, people like me that are well known, how they put up with it, because it's not that I would be
reveal too much, but the poor guy's phone never stops, you know.
Yeah,
you can imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I would never want to get to that level. How can I put it? I don't mind engaging with the public. It's not that I don't like the public. It says that you've always got to be prepared when they come up where they recognise you. You don't know what it is they're seeing. Have they seen your show in full context? All good.
Usually not. I
But
find
have they seen, clickbait or now they've got soundboards, by the way, where they create complete conversations that you've never
I
even
know,
had.
yeah. Crazy, eh? Yeah.
And that opens up something else, actually, Tom, because it's quite frightening.
And the deep fakes.
Yes, because it's quite frightening. Because the law courts haven't caught up to this yet. The law courts don't realise, and again, it goes back to what happened in Barrow. The law courts are only just beginning to realise that people can make fake texts, they can do fake messages from Messenger, they can actually do fake voice now. All of it is deep fake, but it's becoming very popular, even on the channels that I go on, where they use soundboards. And some people actually think they're talking to the person because
they do.
All the little soundboards, they play it, and they think that they've been added to the panel. And
what's frightening about it is if you look at how good face recognition has become now, it's brilliant now. I don't say brilliant as in I admire it. I mean, it's very, very accurate. If you look at that, and then you look at what you just been mentioning, what was you just mentioning? Sorry, I've gone blank.
The soundboards where they record.
The other thing.
No, I'm saying the way that the deep state.
Oh, the deep fakes.
Yeah.
So, as someone who comes from a background in technology, I already know what those deep fakes are going to look like in 18 months' time. And I'm telling you, they're going to be perfect. The only ones that won't be perfect will be the people that are just getting used to the software and stuff to do it. But there's going to be some perfect deep fakes out there, which you probably need to analyze at a digital forensic level, meaning you'd have to look like these soundboards and stuff that they do. There is digital coding you could put in your messages that would, if you could go through that digital coding, it would prove they've been chopped together. But you'd have to have that ability or go to that length to prove it in the first place. And they know this. But people, you said about kangaroo courts, people are much more willing to hear stuff being thrown around. Stick with that. I've been accused of stuff before. And then when I produced the evidence to produce it wasn't true, nobody wanted to see it because it wasn't exciting as the accusation, Yeah.
Well, luckily for us, these people, if that was ever to happen to me, I would have to say to the solicitor, right, well, I want the date and when that was supposed to have happened.
Yeah.
I will prove where I was. If it was on a live stream, I'll give the full context. But no, it is scary. I mean, I'm going to move on to Andrew Tate. Let me use him. I don't like him. I don't like him personally myself. That's my own opinion.
I'm on the fence. I've made a couple of videos about it. I'm on the fence. I think he's a worker. I don't think we've seen the real Andrew Tate, and I don't know whether to dislike him or not because I just think at the moment when I say worker, I mean he's putting on a persona that I just don't buy into.
So I want to finish what I was saying. I don't personally like his personality, but whether he's guilty or not is a whole different ball game. And I sit reserved on that. And the reason I sit reserved on that is because, like I say, there's a lot of fakery going on. Human beings themselves can lie. I don't know. Is there motives why they would want to shut him down? Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is.
So I'm just sitting back and waiting to see what actually pans out of all this because I don't know.
That's the opinion.
I'm gonna say it, and a lot of people are probably not like what I'm going to say.
No, go on, say it.
But I have seen the Vice interview from them two girls, and I'm not convinced that they are actually victims. And when I say that, people go, "Oh, how can you say that?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I've got no proof." I just feel that video just comes across as one of those mocked up propaganda videos.
Yeah.
If it turns out that they've got proof, then I'll eat my words on that. But that's what I'm feeling at the moment. So all of it, I'm sort of Stepping back and just reserving judgment. Yeah.
I think this is what people like about you is the fact that you just said you just encapsulated it perfectly. You said, I don't like Andrew Tate, don't like his personality, but I'm not prepared to rule on this. And I basically did something similar the other day in a video I did the other day. I said, I don't, didn't like this, thought it was a work, I thought he might be a bit fake. But as far as the charges against him, how the hell would I know? So totally on the fence about that. And even if we get news about it, how can we trust it if he does get,
Well, this is the other thing, isn't it? Because we're a country that used to uphold justice, and that's why a lot of people like to come to our country. I mean, look at Shamima Begum trying to get back in, begging it after what she did, because she thinks that our system is going to be fairer on her, and make a much better judgment on her as a human being. But actually, is our justice system now failing because of these trials by social medias?
Our justice system was failing anyway, because I remember when I started interviewing Tommy outside the courts, what became apparent was that the justice system had become, this is just my opinion, but I think this can be proven, the justice system is now weaponized, and they're using laws that were meant for one thing, and they're inverting them, and they're using them now against their own citizens, preventing them from having the freedom of speech, preventing people like Tommy from defending himself against somebody who's made a living off making articles. I'll use him as an example, but they make a living off of writing bad things about him. When he says something bad back, he's in court. They are using. So they're using our institutions as weapons against their own people instead of protecting our people and our children like they were meant to. So I think, and the social media part, that's really interesting you mentioned that, because I feel like people are made guilty by social media, and then nobody's interested in the news report that says they're actually innocent.
Yeah, and I think that these newspapers should be made to do a full front page article where they do their apologies.
Absolutely.
And if that meant that was on the front pages and they had loads and loads and loads of them, then obviously that would damage their credibility, so they wouldn't want them, so they wouldn't make false allegations anymore, and then they could go back to their normal front pages. But they don't. They do a little paragraph hidden away in the middle.
That's right. That's right. Even me. There's times when I've been wrong, and it's like, what's the best course? And the best course is to take a step backwards, come on here and go, sorry. Do you know what I mean? But a lot of people can't do that. It's about, they have to save face somehow, or make and I think a lot of people on the far left do that. They try and they'll double down. And there's times to not do that. There's times to just realize the facts and everything else. Maybe you got out the wrong side of the bed that day. Who knows? But you just got it wrong. And I'm prepared, like with Andrew Tate, I'm kind of like that with him. I'm prepared to be wrong about him, about anything, And I think that is also what's missing from our polarized world, in which people are so entrenched in either side, is that there's a lot of people that aren't willing to change their mind in spite of any facts that might be presented. Would you agree?
Not only that, there's a lot of people that look, it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve for all of us. I mean, I was so green when I first come on here. I got dragged I got race baited. I got dragged all over the place because my husband's African. I was hated on the left.
Is that in the movement that happened?
I was hated by far right extremists.
Oh, wow.
That were white and black.
Because you've got an ethnic...
and then I was also hated by the left because I didn't have their narrative. I wasn't using that to my advantage to go, oh yeah, look at me, victim.
Yeah.
So I've got people that really can't stand me on either side, and then I've got people that do actually really like me and champion me. But the one thing that people have to realize is that we're all still human, and even though we're giving our opinion, it doesn't mean we're 100% right.
That's right. That's right. And there's times when you can come on and say, I've got the facts in front of me. And there's times when you've got to come on and say, this is just an opinion, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we're not going to get it right all the time. I mean, if we could, if we were that much of an oracle, we'd be betting and gambling on the, you know,
Yeah,
making our money without even lifting a
yeah,
finger. We just do the
true.
lottery every week and get the numbers right and piss
That's
off
true.
into oblivion. Yeah.
Now, there's something about your show I want to ask because I've been trying to work out myself, like if there's some hidden deep secret meaning to it, and I just cannot work it out. Why do you play about half an hour's worth of music before you come on?
Like, well, the reason why I do music before I come on is sometimes I use songs that are actually connected to what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
And might be a message in the songs or the lyrics. Other times it's just because it's a song that I like, and
Right,
it gives people enough time to get into the room.
right, okay, okay. I always wondered because yeah, it was just I haven't seen anybody else do it quite like that. You know, it's different, but then there's nothing wrong with different. No, I was always wondered about that, and you know, obviously, I don't know when we did the interview last. It was a long time ago now, but you know, for getting recent experiences, generally speaking, is it as well as the serious topics you talk about? Is it a fun experience for you doing this?
Sometimes it's been quite painful, especially when there's been lies, slander, you know, intimidation tactics. I don't want to go into them, but you know, going over into the real world, I have suffered with a lot of that shit.
Right, right.
You know, people running around on families' Facebooks trying to get
Oh,
information and all that kind of stuff, which is deeply deplorable.
yeah.
That part of it, but it comes with the power, Tom, doesn't it? You've had your fair share of all that
Oh
rubbish.
God, yeah.
It comes
Yeah.
with it, and you have to sort of like
What
get
way I look at it is,
resilient to it. Yeah.
yeah, what you said earlier on hit the nail on the head, and that was I knew that by being associated with Tommy, by putting my face out on camera and putting my opinions to it, I knew that I was opening myself up to ridicule and scrutiny. So I have to take it. I
Mm.
have to. And if I don't like it, then I can crawl back under the stone I came out from. But if I can't handle a few bitter people on the internet that are jealous of what they think that I have and I haven't got,
Yeah.
then, you know what I mean, yeah? Then how am I going to handle the big subjects and the big people if I ever get to debate them? You know?
The worst thing, the worst thing, the pinnacle of what happened to me, which I still laugh about today. This I did find funny, even though it's quite abhorrent, really. There was a young Muslim lady that actually went to the police station, and she said that I was running the far right. And the police knew that that weren't true because come on, they've got intelligence.
Running the far right.
Yeah, they've got intelligence. They must know that that's ridiculous. They must have known
Yeah.
that wasn't true. But because I wasn't on their systems, I have no criminal record. You know, my fingerprints had never been taken or mugshot or anything like that.
Yeah.
Of course, they saw that as an avenue to get all that stuff and put it onto the system. And they came around my house and arrested me, dragged me out in handcuffs. Yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
I was taken out in front of all my neighbours. See, I got a very dark sense of humour. So to me, it was like, yeah, kudos at last.
you finally made it. You made it.
Criminal with connections, but actually, it's not. When you think about it, if it wasn't for the fact that I've got the deep sense of humour that I've got, you know, and I was taken down there. They soon realised actually, because when they knocked really early in the morning. Got us out of bed, like bang, 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 bang at the door. Open up, or we're going to bring the door in, and all that shit. And I sort of opened the window, and I said, "Well, what's the matter?" And they said, "You need to come down here now." And I went down and opened the door, and I was still in my nightdress, and I was like, "Well, can I go and get dressed before you arrest me?" And they were like, "Yeah." But seeing my husband come down the stairs, who's a dark black African, they suddenly realised as they were telling me that I was being arrested for hate crime and connections to the far right and all this rubbish, you know, that maybe they might have got it a little bit wrong. But yeah, so they dragged me off to the police station, and yeah, I just chatted with them in the back of the car and stuff. And then when I got there, I just sang songs in the cell because I'd never been in the cell before. I found it quite appalling.
You sang songs in there, seriously?
Yeah, I did. I was singing, the higher
Did
you
it?
build
Did it
the
bother you,
barrier.
or were you just like passing time?
Yeah, I was just passing time, so I was singing at the top of my voice. Some of the other inmates joined in as well at times.
Awesome.
And after about 2 hours, they asked me, did I want a solicitor? I said not at that point because I knew full well that it was ridiculous. I was just going to go no comment anyway. I did that, went back into the thing, and the only thing that I said after they finished recording, I said, have you even bothered looking into this person who's made the allegation? And they said no. I said, there's her channel, go and have a look at it. And they took me back to my cell. And then I said, look, I think they came and they said to me, oh, your husband's called up. You know, he wants to speak to you. We're going to allow you the phone call. So I went to speak to him. I said to him, can you go and get the solicitor? Because this is the allegations they make to me. Just get our solicitor. He's a good bloke, actually. This bloke's lovely. And before the solicitor even came, they came back and they said, look, we've decided no further action. We've tried to spin this around as quick as possible, and we're letting you go. But I still thought, what a fucking liberty. You know what I mean?
How did you come away feeling about all that?
Sorry?
How did you come away feeling about all that?
I was outraged at first, but I did write to them and say that I want all my stuff taken off, and I have got it in writing that they've removed all my fingerprints and that. Right. Whether they have is another matter.
Yeah, true.
I've got it in writing that, so, you know, but I'm not. When I sit and think realistically, look, I'm not likely to be a cat burglar or fucking go and break into a bank or do anything like these, you know. So at the end of the day, it's not really going to affect me. But then I think to myself, but what if a credit system did come in? Is that going to be used against me? Yeah. And have they got me? Have they got me on the system under hate crime? Because you know that now there is a system where you're logged. You don't get charged, but it's there.
Yeah, it happened to me the other day. You're logged. Whether that comes up or not, I don't know. But I know they have to log everything now. You're on about community and that, and it's like, whilst this shit is going on, and this is still happening to people making these phone calls, everything else. This is why neighbours don't talk. This is why, we need to. I think personally that we need to solve problems community by community, or town by town, or city by city, and you can't do that if you're frightened to speak to your neighbour because they'll do this sort of thing to you.
I'm lucky because where I live, I'm well established, let me put it that way. I haven't always lived in the house that I live in, but I've always lived in this area for most of my life. I mean, when I was born in the East End of London, under the Bow Bells, I'm Cockneys, etc., etc., etc. But when I was 5, my parents moved over to the south, and we've always been in this area. And so I've got lots of relatives, lots of in-laws, lots of friends, lots of people that know me. And because I'm a regular, if you know what I mean, I'm a face. They might not know you deeply, but they know that you're local and everything else. So that kind of thing doesn't worry me. But I do see what you mean, but with breakdown, because people don't want to let go of their victim cards, you see?
Right.
If black people and white people admit openly that they actually get on as much as they do, they can't use that for their little strike forward. The same with women and men and everything else, because people know that they can use those cards to gain an extra footing up. It's like a get out of jail free card, isn't it? You know?
Yes, it is, absolutely. Do you think that we maybe for the first time, do you think we're lacking a bit of bravery in this country?
Definitely.
Yeah, I see people say, oh, we need more Tom Robinsons. And it's like, I don't agree. It's like, no, we need people to be themselves, but fight fight themselves, you know. I find
I
that a bit of
think
a cop out.
I think people have got a lot to lose, and because the majority of this country are white, and because there is an anti-white agenda, and
Yeah.
people don't like it when I say that, but there is. That doesn't mean I'm negating that there's racism towards ethnic
No,
minorities.
I've got some videos just as a point here, which I will be putting up soon, which show people from Chinese to black people saying, "What are we doing to white people?" So there's there's evidence from those people on this as well. Sorry, Jude, to carry on.
Yeah, and so it's not only our language that we're being told to change, it's our whole thought process, it's our comedy, it's the way that we relax with each other, and basically all of our culture, you know. And it's hard. It's hard for some people. I mean, for me, I'm obviously I'm married to an African. I can engage in other cultures, and I'm one of these. Well, I think most British people are actually very interested to learn about other cultures. They enjoy understanding, oh, you do that rain dance for what reason, or you might go to another country, you pray so many times a day for what reason, what's the reasoning behind it, what do your names mean, oh, what dishes do you eat, we love all that, but we want to have the right to be able to be ourselves as well. Now, I'm not talking about being nasty bastards and being racist and that, but there is certain banter that British people have with ethnic minorities, and ethnic minorities have that banter with um, whites as well. That now they are making so much more than it really is,
Can I
and
just
that used to gel us together because they would laugh at us, we would laugh at them. It's a bit like the Irish, the Scottish, and the English.
can
We
I just
all
ask everybody 1 second? Is everybody hearing? Sorry, is Jupiter's sound okay to you people? Because to me it's gone really bad.
Is it? Let me try.
Yeah, can I just ask people for a sound check on Jupiter, please? And Stu, if you're there, yeah, well, we'll get a sound check first. We might have to put you on and off stream again. I'm not sure what's happened. It's gone. Can you give me a count, please, Jupiter?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, mate. They're saying it sounds all good, so it must just be me. I can understand you, so we'll keep going. Sorry about that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right. No, so there is an anti-white agenda that's going on. It comes from the establishment, actually. It doesn't really emulate from ethnic minorities, but new ethnic minorities have been very quick to jump on it because they think it's the normal way that it's always been in Britain when it hasn't. And obviously now we've got British ethnic minorities that are using it as well. Seeing that the people that never saw themselves as victims were quite happy to strive hard, work through the system, and get to the top. And now saying, even when they're at the top, I mean, but look at Afua Hirsch, for example, half Jewish, half Somalian, I think she is. And she sits there preaching to underprivileged white people that they've got white privilege. What a fucking joke.
Just 1 second. So, Stu, could God remove me and Jupiter from the stream and put us both back on again, please? Just so I can see struggling to hear. Right, give me a count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No, it's still the same. I'm just gonna have to work with it. I don't know what's happened. It must be my end. It must be my end. Sorry about this.
It might not be. It might be this end. I don't know.
It's like it's a bit Dalek-y, but it'll be okay. So with the free speech thing, we're obviously both advocates for free speech, and for me, I've been thinking over time it's always been about free speech, but I've been thinking more and more recently. When I was trying to sort of, how to put this, make sure I could get videos out on YouTube without being banned every 5 seconds, I would come up with alternate words and everything else. But the point was, I started to realize free speech isn't just about free speech, in my opinion. It's about free thought, because the moment that I started internally in there going, oh shit, no, got to do it this way, and that becomes so natural and so quick that you don't even think about it. You've just changed the way people think, and you've made a taboo in their head. And I've actually been affected by that a little bit and found myself having to unlearn that censorship. And I think that's kind of prevalent a lot. Even people on the right or left, the people feel like they're stepping on a minefield just talking.
Yeah, years ago there used to be lots of comedy sketches where you would have a bumbling idiot that would say something and then go, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean that," and then say something else that sort of like leads them into a deeper shit and deeper shit and deeper shit. It almost feels like that in real life, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. The rabbit hole never ends.
You know, when people say things like, "Oh, if a man, for example, was to walk down the road and he was to see, I don't know, a black woman or a mixed race lady, a young man I'm talking about, and he was like, he paid her a compliment on her hair," they would say that was innate racism that's been hidden and covert. And you would think, hold on a minute, you know, just a normal compliment, which is actually positive, not negative, is now being turned into something.
It all is. If you say, "Oh, I fancy a black person," then it's like, "Oh, well, that's some kind of sick rape fantasy you've got to find."
Fetish. Yeah. Well, they did that with me. That's what the black nationalists used to say to me, that I was that I'd slave owned my husband and that I had a fetish.
Oh my god. That's sick. What is wrong with people? I distinctly remember being on your show and talking to you, and I think you said to me, about having children. That there was people, because there was people talking about not having mixed race children. And I remember you asked me a question. I can't remember exactly how it went, but I do remember saying to you, I think I'd fall in love with someone first, and then if it comes to the point of having children, like, I'd already be with them. So whatever cousin they were, it's too late. Isn't it?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't premeditate what the color my children were going to be.
Yeah. This is the problem, isn't it? You've actually got sort of like society telling you that you're a sellout if you decide to be with somebody of colour, or if you're a black person that tries to be with somebody that's white. But where does this go? I mean,
but see, the ethnos are okay if you say with a Romanian or a Polish, someone that they see as European.
Yeah, so they don't care. They won't care about that. But do you know what annoys me most of all is that we all know that there is this sort of like great replacement theory. Now, it's not a replacement. What it is a change in demographics by a ratio of the 100% in the country, based on the fact that whole families of foreigners are coming in. But so easily, because of that misalignment and that confusion, people automatically look at families like mine. And this is what I mean by I sit in so many different areas to other people, because they automatically look at me and they look at my husband and they go, "Well, you're part of the problem. You're replacing us. You want brown people to take us over." When actually, the people like me, we're in something like 2% of the population. We're not a threat at all.
Right. You know? And also, making those snap, quick, knee-jerk judgments like that is helpful to no one. If you're going to think about things like that, if that's going to be a subject for you, then you really owe it yourself to go and speak to those people and find something out about them, don't you? And that's what's missing as well. It's an instant snapshot, done, guilty kind of thing. And like you say, it's not exactly changing the face of things. I can understand if it was a bit more like, say, the Muslims, which I think they 5%, 4%, but schools are changing for them and everything else. It's like there's a lot of changes for just 4%. I understand that more.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, our country is a very strange country because we have politicians that go out to sell themselves to the population, and it's supposed to be the person who gets the majority votes wins, and you're supposed to vote for somebody that you're more aligned with their policies, that you really want to affect change with. And then when they get in power, they go for the minority. So you might as well actually vote for the bloke that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
Hoping that he is going to go for the other people and you might get what you want.
See, this is why I think, though, our political system's broken. It's like what we stand. What I call myself on the right. I don't know what I really am, but what I stand for is a lot of what we used to call the left. Really, as freedom of speech and a sort of live and let live kind of attitude I've got. As long as it's not affecting me in a negative way, you know, and it's not affecting other people in a negative way, I've got no problem with a person, you know, changing their sex if they want to. It's when they try and force other people to live a delusion with them, or when they're competing in, say, combat sports and they've had 30 years of testosterone in their body. That's kind of where I take more umbrage with it, because that affects people, you know. But other than that, I'm kind of live and let live kind of person. I'm not judgmental in that way, you know. It's when people try to force.
So you're very similar to me. You don't want to know what goes on in someone else's bedroom. You can do what you like in your bedroom, but don't start telling me that we've all got to bow down and have fucking different coloured shoelaces to represent what you're doing in your bedroom.
Yes.
You want to do that for your bedroom, then I want to say specifically for our bedroom, then, kind of thing.
Yeah, and if those people, when you've got people starving in the world, you've got all the tragedies that are going on in the world at the moment. If they think wearing some spangly laces is virtuous, we've got a big problem, you know. But that is a lot of what it is. All the big major problems.
Look,
that they're not even educated on. Sorry, go on.
When you've got an economic crisis going on, and you've got people in Parliament literally saying that trans women, because they're not women, they're trans women can go for smear tests if they get in touch with their doctor and get themselves put on the list, wasting everybody's time because they don't even have a womb, then come on, this is ridiculous.
Did you see the person the other day? I can't remember. I think it may have been, I don't know if it was Tommy's Telegram chat or somebody sent, I can't remember where I saw it, but did you see the one where the young boy that was supposed to be a girl was making a video talking about having period pains and how bad they were and everything else, when he hasn't got a womb or anything else?
You see, this is ridiculous, because what we're being asked to do as a nation, and actually it's traumatizing people in my opinion, is to play make-believe for a minority.
You're indulging other people's fantasies.
Yes.
But to the point where you're distorting your own truth.
Yes.
And a universal truth, which is dangerous for science, it's dangerous for the social nature of what we are, it's dangerous for our culture. It's really dangerous to free thinking when you do that to people. I'm worried for the free thought. If people, like you say, are going to come at it from this angle, you know, and expect us to indulge in their fantasies, that's the part that bothers me. That's not live and let live. That's, I want to live and also control a part of your life where I make you indulge in my fantasy. And from the polls I've seen, these people who go through these transitions, they're no happier after the transition than they were before.
But it's not even indulging in a fantasy. It's indulging in a fantasy by their rules. I'll give you an example.
Yes,
One of my children, when they were attending school that they were at, she had a group of friends, and amongst her friends, when they started in the first year of secondary school, they were all normal kids. By the second year of secondary school, one of those children said that they were asexual. Another one said that they was a gay girl, and another one said that he was a homosexual boy. Okay, this was her friend group. So she was friends with a whole group of LGBTQs, basically. And she stayed friends with them for years and years and years. And then in the last year, just before she was doing her exams, they were walking up the road home from school. And the lesbian had an argument with the homosexual. Now, Any other time in the group when the homosexual done a flounce or, had a bit of a tantrum, he would say to the group, I'm just having a faggot moment, don't worry about it. And everybody would be all right. They'd all laugh it off and everything else. And it was natural amongst the group to say, it's a faggot moment. My daughter was there. The lesbian and the homosexual had a row. The lesbian started crying. The homosexual walked off. And my daughter comforted her and said, don't worry, he's just having a faggot moment. He'll be all right tomorrow. Trying to cheer her up. Well, 2 days later, the homosexual and the lesbian made friends again. And then both of them said that they were offended that my daughter had said that when she was trying to console the lesbian. And went home and told their parents. Their parents then got in touch with the school, even though my daughter was friends
Oh my God.
with the school, and she was put in solitary confinement for 2 days as punishment.
Wow. I have no comment.
So, they want you to accept them. They want you to accept their terms. But when you do,
Wow.
Wow.
It's also like the third and fourth wave feminists. It's like I've been talking to guys and girls about this, and I've always sort of been the guy that will pick up a bag for a girl or open a door for a girl, not because I think she's incapable of doing it herself, just because I can. Because I'm a man, I'm a mule. That's my purpose, and it's never about saying you can't do it. And what I'm finding is now you've got women that will thank you for it genuinely and be really like, oh, what a gentleman, I haven't seen that for a while. Yeah. And then you've got other people that literally want to deck you for it. And it's like, where does the man stand in this world?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's confusing for all of us all round because.
Do you think it's wrong?
I'm like you. I'm a bit of an old-fashioned lady. Right. I like the drink being poured. I like the door being opened. I like people being polite. I don't expect them to treat me as if I'm lesser than them in brain power or respect. But I accept that women can't do what men do, and men can't do what women do in a lot of areas. And that look, you can line up 10 women. And not all of those women will be able to do the same things. One will be a better cook, one will be better at cooking cakes, another one will be better at sewing, another one will be better, and if you transverse that over to the men, the same thing. So for them to actually think that men and women are exactly the same is ridiculous. But where they've started all this nonsense, I feel so sorry for the youngsters today because not only have they lost the social skills of being able to approach the opposite sex to ask for a date because they're not sure whether they're going to get rejected like back in the old days. That was the biggest fear, rejection. Now they have to worry about whether there's going to be claims of harassment, sexual harassment.
That's right. That's so right. How do you approach a woman now? And even for women, I mean, it's not easy for them now either. It's gone a bit crazy. And then the other thing as well, when you've got people talking about, making people feel guilty for not fancying men that dress like women, they are telling people they're bigots for not fancying. And you think that that when I was growing up, dealing with puberty was bad enough.
Yeah.
But oh God, what must it be like for them?
Well, everything that's not meant to be hate has become hateful. So, for example, I say that you shouldn't fat shame. Okay, I agree. Let's not be rude to people that are fat, but let's not lie to them either.
Right, there you go. Right? That's fine.
Right, but they say that, but what you will get is people on the left. 1 minute saying don't fat shame, but then they will see a really attractive man with a woman that's curvy. And if they don't believe with them politically, they will say things like, well, you shouldn't be together because, she's overweight, and you should be with a skinny woman anyway, and what's going on here? And you think, oh my God. And then you have the fat women saying, skinny men shouldn't refuse us. If they're refusing us, that means that they're being fattest. And
seen it, yeah.
Almost like
You're right.
telling men that you have to be people that are,
and that's what the transgender people are doing now as well.
You're transgender, fat, ugly. Otherwise, you're shallow.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to have your own preference anymore.
You're not allowed to add aesthetics into your decision making when you date someone. And whether people want to admit it or not, that does play a part. What percentage is different probably per person, but it does play a part. Not everybody wants to date John Merrick. You know?
How are you expected to make good love making with somebody if you're not attracted to them? It's
bingo.
You know,
and it's cruel to push people together under those circumstances because it's always going to end bad.
Yeah, and then
especially
if you're worrying about the divorce rates and everything else, the last thing that you should be doing is forcing people into relationships that are just not going to work out. You know?
TJ, if you're still there, just so you know, I kind of think this podcast, the reason I did it is because Jupiter is a voice of Britain, and so I don't know, but maybe this is a voice of Britain worthy interview. Sorry, Jupiter. So there's that, and so, you know, even thinking about what we spoke about so far.
Oh my God, this drill is in my head now.
Is that, I was going to say, I don't know, you've done really well for not losing it. I've got to say.
I think they've actually got a cheek. I mean, this has been going on since 8 o'clock this morning.
Oh, what? Just like that?
No one knocked to say, look, we're going to be drilling all day, just so that you're sorry for the inconvenience. Not one person. It just started up and that was it.
Oh, no, all day long. Well, I spoke to someone before getting you on today because I wanted to find out a little bit about, you know, what might interest you and stuff. And what came up was, and I'm curious now, about you having a fight at Speaker's Corner. Is this true?
I had a fight in Speaker's Corner, yes. So what happened was when I first came onto the scene, Black nationalists put me down as a racist. They said I was far right because I'd been on a panel and I'd said that I supported Tommy. And so I was basically set up in the park, yeah. And I was attacked. But we went to court and the girl got done for common assault against myself and common assault against my husband.
Right.
Because rather than just have a fight, which is what people were expecting me to do, I've been receiving threats for a few weeks prior to that.
Right.
Online. And I actually
did you take the threat seriously at the time? Did you know?
Yes, I did. And I actually said publicly, I'm not going to stop going to the corner when I want to go Speaker's Corner. And that if anyone attacks me, I will not raise a finger back, but you're not going to be removing me from the park. Because a few weeks before that, they'd actually chased Raj. Do you remember Raj, Speaker's Corner?
Yeah.
They'd actually chased him out of the park for absolutely nothing, and the police had forced him out. Yeah. And so I said, you know, you can do what you like, but I won't hit you back, but you're not removing me. And I stood my word. I didn't hit back. And the only time that I raised my hands to the girl was when she started attacking my husband, who was not
right. And that's understandable.
And I dragged her off, and I won on self-defense. Yeah.
People don't realise how much it takes to do what you did, but also it is an advantageous thing to be able to do if you can do it. Because otherwise it's just seen as two people having a scrap. But if you can hold back like that, I think it's a very powerful thing, and people need to realise that. So when we run demos and I always used to feel we used to do better when we, rather than charging that police or running away from them, when we just held the line and you know, nobody would take it back.
Well, it's funny that you say hold the line, because part of what happens, if you actually watch the full recording, all the Muslims there linked arms and said, "Hold the line, don't let her through," to protect the girl that had assaulted me.
Oh, right.
And I broke their line like in 2 seconds.
Right.
I was just like, "Get out of my way!"
Yeah.
And, because at first, when I got assaulted, I was outraged, and I was telling her, "Get out the park." Yeah, because I thought, no, I'm going to do what they do to everybody else that they've picked on before. And I was like, "Get out of the park. You're violent. Get out of the park. Get out of the park." She wouldn't leave. Then she assaulted my husband. I pulled her off my husband. The Muslims formed a wall and she hid behind them. So I broke the wall and followed her and told her I was going to do a citizen's arrest. So I said to her, and it was quite clear on camera as well, I'm not going to touch you, but I'm preventing you from leaving. You are not leaving this park. She did eventually run out of the park, but because she assaulted me and it was quite clear that I told her I was doing a citizen's arrest, I was using reasonable force because I didn't use any force at all.
Yeah.
And she got done for assault on two counts.
Good for you, because that takes a lot. I don't think people realise that takes a lot of. Hey there, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. I don't think people realise the amount of restraint and control, and also thinking under pressure that takes. So fair play to you for doing that. It's hard. It is hard.
What was really funny, if you could actually ever go and look at it and take a look at it, Tom, you must always look at what happened the weeks afterwards, because she assaulted us and ran out of the park. Then about a week later, because the police came and everything, and what we did was we called the police ourselves. So we didn't use the parks police, which is why I think we got more justice.
Right.
So Westminster police turned up, saw the assault, took down the notes and everything else, and then it went all quiet. And I wanted her charged for what she'd done. So I went down to the park.
Was it bad? I mean, how bad was she?
She was like a raving lunatic.
Oh, God.
Yeah, no, she was like a raving lunatic. I mean, luckily enough, she didn't really do anything to me apart from she managed to get a finger up my nose and scratch it. So I had a bit of a
right. Oh, God.
But physically, no, she hasn't really done anything. But it was the fault that she was getting away with assaulting somebody for absolutely no fucking reason at all. And so 2 weeks later, we went down to the park to ask the parks police, look, what's actually happening? And she turned up in the park on that day. And they said, oh, well, nothing's going to happen, because you spoke to her when she was abusive to her. You followed her to tell her to get out of the park. And I said, no. Don't start giving me a lecture and telling me all this nonsense. There is something going to happen because she assaulted us, and that is the law. And then I said, and by the way, she's over there. And I want to make this clear at this point. It wasn't all Muslims in the park that were horrible. There were Muslims that actually came over to me with tissues, that were very supportive of me, could not believe what she had done.
Right.
So I'm not in no way, shape or form saying all Muslims are bad people. And in fact, in the park on that day when I was speaking to the policeman, it was a Muslim person who come up and said, look, she's over there. She's loitering in the background. And I said, she's over there. She's not even meant to be in the park, because on the day of the assault and that, they told me that she was going to be served with papers. Anyway, they went over and spoke to her, and they picked her up and they drove her around. And I later learned from footage that basically what they'd done is they drove her away from the park and then dropped her outside of the park, and no papers had been served. So I kind of made a complaint, and then about a week after that, they then served the papers on her. That was a bit of a debacle. She kicked off then as well. Then in between, she came down to the park and rolled all over the floor with her legs in the air and everything else, pretending she was mad to try and get away from what she happened.
Okay.
And then the police officer, PC Barnes, arrested her. That one is really interesting. The Isabella one, because they ended up having to restrain her.
Wow.
It took 11 police officers that she bit, kicked, punched.
Oh my God.
to get her into the back of the
Is
police
she a
van.
big girl?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So you should really watch them all. Watch
Yeah,
them both.
I will.
So her name was Isabella. It will say it, so. Watch the fight and the footage of the fight, and then
Okay.
watch when she gets arrested. And the first thing she screamed out was racism, racist to the police officer. Yeah. So he then took her to court for assaulting him because she bit him and she
Oh,
irritated his lupus.
right.
And he had to have time off of work because all his arm inflamed itself. I'm not saying that she had rabies, but you know,
Well, it don't sound good, does it?
his whole arm went up. He had to be hospitalised. Yeah.
But listen, you are, I think it's fair to say, and it's why I wanted you on, and I'm so glad you come on. You are one of the true voices of Britain, and I really do appreciate what you do, and I hope you realise that you are actually a voice for people. You're a voice that could talk for some people, and you are a voice that people do respect, and myself included. Um, but what's obviously, you've had things happen recently which have meant you're sort of at the moment flying solo. Do you intend to continue flying solo? And what are your plans for the future?
Yeah, I think it's better. I've learnt the hard way. Look, everything's a learning curve, and I've learnt the
Of
hard
course.
way that it's best if you just do it solo, especially that way you're only responsible for what you know you do and you say yourself, and that's it. But the thing is, I'm only responsible for what I say, not the way that people interpret it. By the way,
That's it. That's it. And
yeah.
I keep trying to say to people, I fell out with someone on there. It's a shame because I liked him, but I fell out with him because I said to him, offense is taken. And I understand, like anybody, like I'm a worker just as much as Andrew Tate or anybody else. And what I mean by that is when I come on here, I turn my personality up sometimes to a 10 because nobody wants to watch somebody acting like they're on the phone moaning. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be a bit more sprightly. So I might be a bit of a worker, but I've lost where I was now. I'm sorry. But the point was, what was you just saying?
No, just saying that I will be working alone. No, I intend to carry on working. I've got people that I get on with within the Speakers Corner circuits that I do tend to spend a lot of time on panels with. And, I mean, shout out to Dave and Lils who have turned up there, Babs.
Yeah,
Moon.
nice to see you guys.
There is quite a good group of people out there that also talk. I mean, an interesting person for you to get on would be Dave, actually, Working Class Patriot. He's a good guy. But yeah, these, there are people that I do prefer company with, but then there's even people that I disagree with politically that I actually like their company sometimes because I find them.
That's how it.
I
Don't you
like
remember?
banter,
But don't you remember before this Brexit shit that was normal?
Yes.
That was normal to have different political beliefs, and you wouldn't even discuss them really.
Yeah, you didn't. No, you
yeah,
didn't.
things have changed so much.
I don't like to be curtailed by somebody else saying, "Oh, but I don't speak to them," or "I don't like them," because I have a very high tolerance level for abuse. So someone can be really abusive to me on a stream one day, and I've got patience. I could go back a week later, and if they're being civil, then engage in a civil conversation. A lot of other people criticise me for that. They don't understand.
No, I think there's.
why
I think
don't
there's
get
occasions.
personal,
I think there's occasions where you can let it go. I've had people where that they've lost it with me, whether it was fairly or unfairly. But they've been civil from that point forward. Or some people, I think, as well, feel awkward about coming into these little, what you might call communities. And I think sometimes it's almost like a defense mechanism. They come in aggressive because they're scared of not being accepted. So there's certain times I see that in people, and then if I reach out to them or just speak to them a little bit, sometimes they'll just crack right there and then and soften right up. So I do try not to judge someone by their first horrible comment, because it may be that it's like a defense mechanism, you know, because it is. For some people, I've spoke to some people, they find it intimidating. Like, we've got 26 people on here today, not loads, but some people find that more intimidating because it's a small group of people. So, you know, I've had people in the past to fall out with. The thing with me is when people are making phone calls, when people are doing stuff that is just morally reprehensible to a point where, to a point it tells me something about their character that's irredeemable, that's where I have to draw the line. You know, if I know that they're always going to be that way and a danger to the good people around me, you know.
Well, my channel's unusual because I have quite a large group of people that are regulars that are on the right, but
Very unusual.
I also have people that come in on the left, and they both sit there comfortably and talk to each other. They can disagree sometimes, but I love it when I get comments that actually somebody has been made to look at something from a different perspective. And it happened yesterday, actually. It's when I played Tommy's Barrow thing, and I did a little review and pointed out things that I can see, like, because I like to look for patterns and behavioural patterns or trends that are happening. And so it was discussing kangaroo courts and things like that. But one of the ladies in the side chat said this was totally not what I expected him to be. I am really surprised. And I thought, good. That's it.
Yeah,
If it's just one person that sees
the
difference, it's one more person, you know.
Do you know, it's weird. The people that I have to say something here, because the people that I seem to get on with, or have something in common with, or can have a good chat, all seem to have this one same thing as me, about if I can just do one good thing for one person, if I could just open one person. And I think so many of us who do this feel that. It's like, for me, I've already accomplished what I set out to accomplish. So, you know, I was like, if I can help one person, I've already done that because I've been told by someone, you know. So it's like every single person from that point on is a bonus, you know. And it may end up being a handful of people, but that is still priceless compared to no one, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, more and more people are waking up, though.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The problem is you're waking up to a world of bullshit, and it's really hard. It's like, I can say things I know are reasonably fact, yeah, and I say reasonably because science is always changing as well. But people will reject it, and some of these things really shouldn't be opinion based because they've been established. But I understand it, because people have been told so many lies by all sectors, schools, universities, governments, news. Why should they believe anything that's written in a history book? Why should they believe anything that's written in a science book? So these people have made it an uphill battle for people like me to talk any kind of truth. People don't know.
Did you know what also annoys me, though, Tom? There is a danger with some people that, even though you're quite right with everything you've just said, and I stand by you with that.
Thank you.
There are other people that get so immersed in it that they think that it negates racism that does exist. Okay, and I have to say that.
Well, funny to say this. I was with someone the other day, and I hate to lower the tone, but the truth is the truth, and I'm not going to avoid it just to make people comfortable. And I'm not going to go into who it's about or anything else because I haven't got their permission. But I said to someone the other day, do you think that there's at least a percentage of people in our movement where racism has crept in, especially towards certain individuals? At first I thought it was just trolling. First I thought it was just a bit of hate. But I'm now questioning if there is just, not that our movement's racist, because it's never been racist, but there's always racist elements that are going to try and get in. We normally kick them out.
Yes.
But I feel like there's an undertone from some people towards, and again, people I'm not going to mention their name because they might not appreciate it at the moment, but people in our movement who are not the, the typical white person, and I feel like some of the things that are coming towards them are to do with race. And to further that point, the right is always the ones being called racist. And I remember Black Van Man, when he came to a demo, he went on side of the road and he spoke to the people on the right first, and they were really pleased to have him there because black people didn't come to our stuff very much. And then he went over to the other side to Antifa and that, and because they'd seen him with us, they were all calling him racist names.
Yeah.
Very people that are claiming to hate all this stuff.
So firstly, one of the biggest cons that they've managed to do is convince the whole nation that only people on the right can be racist, which is a bullshit lie. Number two, because they've played with identity politics so much, and this comes from the top down, this comes from the establishment with all the policies and everything that they've done and the anti-whiteness and, what it's created. They think it negates racism towards ethnic minorities. No, our country is one of the best places in the world to live for race relations, but there are still racist events going on every day in this country somewhere, whether it be against white people or whether it be against an ethnic
minority. There's a lot against white people at the moment. I do know that.
But also, whether it be against an ethnic minority, there is still racism towards people.
Oh, yeah. There's always some to go around. There's always some to go around. Someone said it depends how you define racism. And in the case of what I was talking about, I define it by what I thought was people having different political opinions, actually hating on someone because of the color of their skin.
Let me put it this way: because of my views and because I'm married to a black man, my husband has been called the most atrocious racist insults by people on the extreme right as they have on the extreme left.
Right. Wow. And there's always this thing, isn't there, about when you go far left or you go far right, they end up meeting.
Yep.
That's interesting. It's interesting you've had that, and you've had that from both sides. That is just as bad.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
100%. I've even had ethnic minorities who are racist to him themselves. They would call him a coon, sellout. So basically, from every group. Yeah.
From what I've seen, and I'm started to learn, and I'm no expert, but I've had some good teachers. It seems to me that, say, black people, for instance, but this could apply to any ethnic minority or most ethnic minorities, they seem to be more racist to each other than outside of that. Especially if, like the word coon, a coon to a white person saying it is a derogatory, racist word, but to a black person, it's Uncle Tom.
Yeah. What I find appalling, but then again, it's not my place to say because I'm white, but what I do find appalling is that if you're standing there saying that you don't like the words, then don't use them on your own kind. Don't do it. Just don't do it. It's like the M word.
There's something to that.
Even though I believe in freedom of speech, my stance on that is a bit nuanced. So I'm not proactively saying that I want to use that word, but if it's going to be outlawed, it should be outlawed for everyone because I don't agree in racially segregating the English language so that one group of people can use it as a tool to oppress another group of people, even if it is by themselves. Because if it's offensive, then the sound of it is offensive. I don't want to be sitting in a restaurant and hearing a group of black people calling themselves the M word. And
I'll tell you something else, what I don't want as well is I don't want to baby talk. So what I've said to people, from my opinion, is I won't use the phrase the N word. I don't like it. That's how you speak to children. And it's now becoming more, because now they're starting to do it with other things. I don't even understand what they're talking about.
Well, I have to be careful, Tom, because in the past I've used the full word and then it's been
and people clipped. I understand.
And sent about to say that, I use
when I've used it very sparingly, and I think used about 3 times, and I'm not going to repeat it again because I feel that would be gratuitous. But I used it to say this is how a word like this still functions in context. And it was like when I said, people used to ask me what was the worst word I could think of, and I used to say it used to be cunt, but now it would probably be that word. That's probably the worst word I could think of.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna say it, I'll say it or I won't, and I choose not to say it in my life. But I have said it a couple of times on a podcast because I don't want to baby talk either. I don't want to be saying the N word. Either it's a word you can use, or like you said, nobody can use. You know.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not a fun word to use. I'm very conscious when I said that it had to be in context, and it was purely for demonstration purposes. You know, it's not something that, to be honest with you, this is all new to me. And growing up, I don't know about if you were the same, but growing up, I didn't feel there was all these race issues. I didn't have any. Went round here, I didn't have any race issues.
So I think racism has always existed, but it's never been as bad as what it is now. I think we've gone back. I think we've gone backwards in time.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
I think it's because of Robin DiAngelo and her book White Fragility. Basically,
Right.
A lot of these racists, these extremists, black nationalists, have been told that basically they've inverted it all. So, and they've been sold a lie that it was better under racial segregation. Look at what happened in America. You know, you had what's the name of the place where they had their own banks and they had their own.
I know what you mean.
And that they get told, oh yeah, you know, you progressed so much more when you wasn't sort of like mixing with each other, and what you need to do is segregate to make yourself better. And actually, it's not.
They tried this in the 60s as well, didn't they? Yeah, you're dead right.
And Robin DiAngelo, she writes that white people, if they claim they're not racist, that means they're definitely racist because
that makes total logical sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. And she also states that if you're somebody that uses the phrase "I don't see colour," then that means that you're definitely racist because you should always recognise someone's colour and treat them accordingly. Because people of colour.
Accordingly. Oh, so they're saying we should treat people differently based on their colour.
Exactly, which is complete discrimination. That whole sentence.
Yes.
Discriminate. It's amazing. It's amazing that we've got so many intellectuals that have fell for all this bullshit.
See, I see colour now, but only because people are constantly going on about it. But I don't see it. I don't see it like in a negative way. I just register it. But that's it. I don't make any judgments over it. But I think genuinely colourblind. Because I don't know, because I grew up in a place that's out in the sticks, and it's just a different vibe. You just, you know, there was never any talks about racism because there wasn't any racism, you know. Mm-hmm. So yeah, all this was new to me, and so I've always said, I don't care what the color of your skin is. I care when I look into your eyes what your body language tells me about you. Do you mean me harm? And if you don't, we're all right, you know. Yeah. And I've always, I know it's simple, but it works. It works for me. I'm not interested in your color of skin, your background. Not interested. I like, someone brought this up the other day. I like the way it used to be, where we used to say, rather than trying to integrate and all this other stuff, we used to say, respect each other's cultures, learn from each other's cultures, and you'll be better off for it. And I used to really like that approach. So you leave someone's culture intact. You don't rip it to shreds like we've done with ours. You leave it intact, but you also don't put other people down or think yourself superior to them. You actually take the best of their culture and try and assimilate it into your own, you know?
Yep. And well, that's what progression is. And that's what they're trying to stop. People progress.
Yeah. I think they have practically stopped it, haven't they, in that way?
Yeah, they're trying to stop it and go in reverse and take us back to Puritan times and a hellhole of poverty. Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Even if they were right, and even if they wanted all this done. It couldn't be undone now anyway. Not in the way that they would, not these people that want it 99% white and not the rest of it. Don't get me wrong, it's stupid anyway. But the genie's out of the bottle where those people are concerned. So I don't know why they keep going on about that, because that's those days are gone. But yeah, the only thing I will say is that I'm surprised, speaking to a few people of, I would say, different ethnic backgrounds when I've been in London, and they've told me that they felt there weren't enough white people around. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, London doesn't feel like London anymore. They said, when I came here, a lot of them said that they were protected by Britain, basically, and they were really grateful to it. But they said that they felt like it was turning into something else. And London was a great example of it. And there was black people actually saying that they didn't feel as comfortable in London because of the lack of white people, which I found fascinating. I'm not sure what to make of it.
I don't know. I can't answer for them.
Yeah, me either. That really had me on the ropes a little bit. Not, like that, but I was like, wow, I've never heard that before. So, yeah, so going forward, so you're going to go solo, and are you just going to keep getting? Do you ever go to demo stuff like that, or you're not into that stuff because you're trying to be?
I haven't been for a long time because of COVID and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and but yeah, no, I will. If something really takes my eye, I will go. But I think I've carved a little niche for myself actually where I am. To speak where I am, watch others do and commentate on that, and then see what I can see from my own perspective.
Yeah,
so,
and
yeah, I'm quite.
Yeah, and you are a true voice of Britain, and like you said, you're a voice for the common people. And like I said, we had about 3 shows like yours, just for different opinions. It'd be perfect because, so I say this is a Voice of Britain video really because I do see you like that, and I see we could do with a few more shows like yours, because I think, like, I don't think I'm anything special or anything, but I think doing the work that I've been doing detaches me more from my roots, where my roots were more about hanging out with people. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now I'm kind of busy doing what I'm doing. I can't do both. So it's nice knowing there's people like yourself out there where I can come along, listen, and get a pulse of what's going on, how people are feeling, the general topics that are going around. And I think it's vitally important. I don't ever want to lose touch with what I've come from, and I'm still,
the base.
exactly. So I thank you for what you do and what you contribute, and I hope you realize how many of us appreciate you just as much as anybody else in this movement.
Okay, well, thank you very much as well. I am going to leave now, Tom, because
I was gonna wind up anyway, but I just want to say thank you for joining me.
Yep, and I will come through again,
Please do. Is there any links or anything you want to plant before you go?
No, not really. I'll just give the names of my channels out. Dupe's Ascension, Jupiter Affiliated, and Jupiter Affiliated Tutu. That's TUTU. Jupiter Affiliated Tutu. So
brilliant.
All right.
So thank you very much for joining. I am Tom Fury. This is Voice of Britain, and I am Rude Boy Choice, and this is Jupiter. God, could you please run the outro and cut us off after the outro is done, please? We'll just wait for God to